Hello and welcome to the Blood and Pigment channel. I'm Joseph and I'm here with Dan, one of the regular on the crew, and a special guest. We're here talking about the Summer of Plunder again. With us we have Andy Hodges, the French commander from last year. How you doing, Andy?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, y'all.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. We wanted to kind of interview you and get your experience as the deep in the corruption and drama of the commander sphere for the Summer of Plunder this year, and just get some of your experiences. And I thought we'd get a good, unique perspective here. But first, Dan, can you tell us a bit about the Summer of Plunder, what it was, and then we can get some of Andy's experience?
Yeah, sounds good. So, in case you missed it and you're watching this video much after the fact, in between, the Summer Plunder is a global event that we host every summer, and it is a global event in which each nationality is pitted each other for prizes. Each nation has a commander that also gives additional prizes to those playing for their respective nation. There's a global map and weekly objectives, and completing those objectives may influence territory gained and lost each week. It is a lot of fun and it gets a lot of people playing.
We haven't mentioned it yet, but this is a Blood and Plunder channel. So this campaign is for Blood and Plunder, and we also layered Oak and Iron in, so pirate themed with all the other colonial powers wrapped up in that. And so, how many commanders did we have? We had a bunch of people involved. We had the Spanish and the pirates and the English and the French and the Dutch and the Native Americans. And Andy was our French commander. How did the French do this year, Andy?
We did great. We came in second place, which is no small feat, especially with how cutthroat and fierce it was this year.
It was a step up, wasn't it?
Yeah, people were getting fired up. There was a lot of passion going on amongst the commander channels, and a lot of backstabbing and deceit, and the map really added a layer of intensity, I feel like, compared to previous years.
He participated a lot last year as a player. You were playing a lot of games. You're probably the top contributing French player last year.
I think I was the second for France.
Yeah, because he had to fight Chris Ash.
Right. He was a madman.
Yeah, could not compete with Chris, but I didn't do too shabby.
Well, thanks for jumping in and helping out. That's kind of a big job, probably more than you knew. You didn't get in on the practice runs we had with this new campaign system where each commander gets to manage the points generated by all the players for their specific nation. So tell us a little about what was involved with that, and then kind of how your experience went managing your players and competing and managing those resources and trying to take over the new world.
Yeah, I think I had two big disadvantages coming in as the French commander. Disadvantage one is I am not particularly great with rules. I tend to be pretty good at strategy once I eventually get a game figured out, but there is an intricate rule system on how to distribute points and how to get points and how to attack and how to defend, and just getting my sea legs under me when I didn't do the practice run, which was my second disadvantage, was, everyone else, they either played the practice run or their second in command did. And my second in command, Tyler, and I both didn't do the practice run this year.
Oh, that's
So
right.
we were coming in completely green, where everyone else had some strategy, and even if they hadn't figured out their own strategy yet, they had seen other people play and they had a feel for each other. So trying to figure out where the winds were blowing with everyone else was scary.
Yeah, well, thanks for jumping in at the last minute. I played this French player at nation as in our test runs because we didn't have any volunteers, but I appreciate you jumping in and doing that.
I would say I had a bit of a rough start where the first week I had an unsuccessful attack fire off, and then week two, if I'm remembering correctly, I attacked somewhere and I took it, but I way overspent, so it looked kind of foolish.
Let's describe that system for a quick minute here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Each As people play games, they can log them on our blog website, Blood and Pigment, and then every time somebody logs a game, they log it under their nation. So anybody playing French, those all their games would they get points for doing different things. As a point for playing a game, a point for doing a demo for somebody, 2 points. a point for playing in their local game store, and maybe a point for accomplishing a objective that changes every week. All those points get stashed for this French commander, you to manage. You have a variety of locations available in the Caribbean that you can throw these points at, representing military strength, resources, and each commander can put points into defense, to defending their locations they have, or attack into trying to take other locations. But all this is under a fog of war, so everybody knows how many points each commander has to deal with, but you can't see where you're devoting those points until everybody has allocated those to various places, and then you see if you have enough points to defend or successfully take some location. So yeah, it can be easy to overcommit or get smashed by a big attack.
It's a lot like the game Diplomacy,
Right.
except all of your resources are determined by real human beings logging games for your nationality. But the commanders are playing a separate game of diplomacy with those points. Week 3 is really the week where everything went to heck. There was an anti-Spanish coalition. Spain, weeks 1 and weeks 2 were clearly dominating. And Spain had reached out to me prior to the campaign starting saying, hey, we should have an alliance. We don't want the English and pirates to just sweep with Raise the Black coming out. They're clearly going to be the most dominant forces. So all the little guys should gang up on them. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do it. And then week 1, they dominated. And afterwards, they messaged me and were like, hey, do we still have an alliance? And I was like, bruh, I don't think so. I think we're going to have to deal with you. So I joined this anti-Spain coalition, and everything fell apart. The night I was
What happened there?
The night I was supposed to log my attack, I went partying with some friends and got really drunk. And I
Red wine and croissants.
wine and croissants and stinky cheese.
Oops.
Let's say that's what it was. Yeah. And I did not log my attacks, and I did not ask my second to do it because I had not been planning on getting so taken out of the fight, as it were.
You need to be careful telling all your French players this. They have special machines to deal with people like this.
Oh, I told the French leadership chat. I was like, "Hey, that's on me, guys. I partied last night and didn't log the attacks. Whoops!" And they all thought it was very funny. They were all very understanding. But everyone else whiffed it too, except for England. The pirates screwed up. Dutch super screwed up. I don't know what happened with the natives, but they were off doing their own thing. And England was the only nationality that hit Spain where they were supposed to, according to the anti-Spain coalition. So that was a really big deal. And then fingers started getting pointed every which way. People were, Andy, did you actually forget to log your points, or did you do that intentionally? Are you in Spain's pocket? Everyone was pointing fingers. It was like the Spider-Man meme. And within the chat, the poor Dutch guy, I'm blanking on his name, but he just Martin, he misspoke. And his misspeak about what happened with his forces, every finger started pointing at him. And
he got walloped the next week, didn't he?
Yeah, we punished him.
So a bit of a confession. I was in Spain's pocket the entire time feeding information. And then when Martin messed up, I took it and ran with it. I saw him and went, oh, I have a golden ticket. I can point the finger at somebody else and take blame away from me.
So
Dan was the pirate second in command, and you were doing most of the
politicking,
managing of the points. Yeah, the politicking. Well,
we did spend a couple weeks partying in Curacao.
That's right, you did take the Dutch city.
So week 4 comes. I have a load of points because I didn't spend any week 3 because I was recovering. So I had double the points than I would have had. And so I did some big hits. I made some major plays in week 4 that really dropped me down on the numbers because you're spending victory points for attacks. And that made it look like I wasn't a threat halfway through the campaign. but I had gained really vital locations that ended up becoming a machine for me in racking up victory points slowly. So I didn't have as much manpower as other nationalities. I think I had the second least, just above natives. But I took 2 big locations week 4, dropped really low in the ranking so I didn't look like a threat. And then sitting on those territories really, by the end game, put me in. It looked like I was going to end in 4th for a while. I then did some more politicking. I went over to Spain. Spain spent a couple weeks beating the crap out of me. And I went over to Spain and I said, please, sir, please stop. Please, I've got 1 baguette left. Please leave me my 1 baguette. And
there is no more places to stab me with your rapier, sir. I am in fact full of holes.
And I mean, he was understandably pissed. He wasted a lot of points trying to take stuff from me. And I stonewalled him the first attack, and then the second attack, he went for softer targets and took them. But he had mercy on me. He promised he wouldn't keep attacking me. And around this point is when, Guy, you and I had, or sorry, you're not Guy, you're Dan. Dan, you and I had a bit of an alliance going at that point. Yep. And around third to last week is when I stopped trusting you.
That's fair.
Because you had told me
Twice.
You had told me week 4 after we beat the crap out of the Netherlands. You had said, "Oh, hey, by the way, after we just steamrolled poor Holland, it was me." And I was like, "Oh my god, I just helped you hide a body." Like, and now you're telling me you're the guilty one? Crap. Like, I'm in too deep now. Like, I can't go to Dutch and be like, "Hey, my bad." So it's like, I guess we're gonna keep beating up Dutch, even though you're the jerk who deserved it.
Wasn't it Spain who was winning that needed to get attacked? I'm confused here.
Well, here's the deal. Right after week 4, Spain was bullying me, and I did not have the power to take them out. I just made bedfellows with the Spanish spy. So the people who I would need to attack Spain were pissed at me because I had attacked them for no reason. The people who I am now in an alliance with are the people feeding Spain information. So I'm like, what do I do now? Like, I had bought Dan's lie, hook, line, and sinker, and now I'm in bed with him. I'm not thrilled about it, but I guess here we are.
Yeah, you never trust Dan too much. I mean, I could tell you.
No. That. So after a couple weeks of the Dan Andy alliance, which served France beautifully, like we started climbing through the ranks. We were, I think for a moment we were in last place, and then we were in 4th, and then getting to 3rd. We were very, very close to 3rd. Dan came to me and he said, "Yeah, we should attack Dutch again. I'm still mad at them for feeding Spain information." And I had this look on my face. I was like, is Dan playing 4D chess and like
with himself
and gaslighting me right now? Or did he forget that he told me the truth? And like, he's just in too deep. He's got his lies all mixed up. Like, what is going? So at that point I was like, screw Dan, screw the pirates. Like,
to be fair, he was trying so hard to get into Spain's court, and Spain was stonewalling him.
Well, my plan was always still to try and turn on Spain. I
did
fully
make a point
intended
to keep other people off of France's back. Some people asked, I forget who it was, we should attack France. I said, no, don't even worry about them.
Yeah.
So I did honor that part of our alliance by going, no, leave them alone. We have bigger targets like the Dutch, remember?
Really is the trajectory you want. You want to come out looking pretty weak for the first half, lay the groundwork to get all those points, and then people know that you're not a threat. No. And then, well, you're not being aggressive in that second half of the campaign. Just try to circle the wagons and build up those points from owning the locations. That's a good tactic. So I think the wine and baguettes helped.
About week 6 or 7 is when, Dan, you tanked your points. You way overspent. You shot yourself from 2nd all the way down to like 5th. And that shot me up to 3rd. And then at that point, I had a good relationship going with England, and there was this temptation of like, do I turn on England now? And one of the sketchier things I did was I did not betray England, but I did kind of casually mention to Spain, like, man, if only someone could take care of England, I might be in second place. I made doe eyes and I batted my eyelashes. And I said the same thing to you, Dan. I was just like, man, I sure would be cool if France was in second right now. I just don't know what to do about England. And you were like, oh, I'll attack England. And Spain was like, oh, I'll deal with England for you. And I was like, oh, great, thanks. And despite having a non-aggression pact with England, it was never an alliance, it was a non-aggression pact. I did not warn him that this was coming his way. Possibly the other, to your point of, trying to not look like a threat, I had mentioned that those first 3 weeks I had numerous blunders. Week 1, my attack failed. Week 2, I way overspent on a hit and lost some territory also. Week 3, I didn't log my stuff. I'm not going to say who, because it sounds a little mean, but one of the other commanders pulled me aside and was just like, hey, you really need to watch out for yourself, because you look dumb. You've had like a bunch of failures, and everyone's going to come at you really hard right now. So like, play strong defense and stop screwing up, because you look like an idiot. And I was like, oh, that's fantastic. That's great. I want people to think I'm an idiot. I want people to think I'm doing a bad job.
It's a wonderful gift to be underestimated.
Yeah. He also pointed out that I had asked some like dumb questions in the commander chat, and that is totally fair. Like I mentioned, I'm not great with rules. So in order to try and make sure that I don't make really obvious mistakes by not understanding mechanics, I tend to ask really obvious mechanical questions just to double check that I know the rules the way I think I do and things work the way I think they do. So I was like, oh, I'll keep playing that up. So like every so often I would ask in the chat something really, really dumb, really obvious that I knew the answer to, but I just wanted that idea that, wow, France really doesn't have their stuff together. It'd be mean to hit France. Andy's a mess.
You should have told Jason and me you were thinking that, because we were really worried about you. As the managers of the campaign, like, what is going on?
No, I didn't. You guys were great. You guys were so helpful. Yeah, every so often I would just ask a really dumb question in the public chat, just so that the other commanders were like, "Oh, well, Andy's playing checkers. Andy's not even in this," which was great. I really appreciate that commander who pulled me aside, and he did not intend to give me that idea. I wasn't offended by him being like, "You look like an idiot." I was like, oh, fantastic. It's fair that people think I might look like an idiot, because I did screw up those first couple weeks pretty badly. By week 3, I had it figured out. I just, partied a little too hard that night. But then I decided to kind of try and keep that act up.
It's funny to hear. Yeah, as the campaign manager, I wasn't privy to all the commander communications and double crossing, so it's fun to hear some of these stories here. And then how did it end up for you at the end?
Yeah, those last couple weeks, like I said, pirates kind of shot themselves in the foot. Pirates and England, I had considered my main 2 alliances in the back half of the campaign. And when the pirates shot themselves down, that launched me into 3rd place, and I was right on England's heels. And then it became a matter of, well, I've got this non-aggression pact. And, I had kind of considered my alliance with the pirates out the window at that point. But did I really want to stab England in the back? Do I want to win that way? And I tried to find a middle ground of making sure none of the cannons were pointed at me and just kind of stepping aside and letting England take the hits from other people, which felt a little dirtbaggy, but it worked out for us. And then the final week, my players got a little bloodthirsty, and they were like, let's throw all of our points and just give Spain a black eye. And I kind of liked that idea. I was kind of on board for it. I put a vote in the chat. I had a captain's chat, which I vetted anyone who requested to join it. I started the chat after week 2, and anyone who asked to join it, I checked their name against the roster of French players, and if they had not played both weeks for France, I did not let them in. Numerous spies tried to join the chat. None of them had logged games for France, so I did not let them in. And
Good job.
Thank you. I had 6 devout French players and my second in command, Tyler, in there with me. And we had a vote. And it looked like we were going to do it. It looked like we were going to sink ourselves to punch Spain. And then Tyler came back with math. And he had done the math that even if we threw all of our points at Spain, they would likely still come in first. So at that point, it was like...
Dan did the math and decided didn't care.
I decided to do what nobody else did and party the last week in Havana.
There you go.
All 300 points.
We chickened out last second and we decided to take the silver medal, which my goal coming into it was to do as good or one rank better than France did last year. And coming in second was a huge accomplishment. So I was still very, very proud of us. It was tempting, though, that last week to throw it all away and punch Spain, but we backed out of it last second.
Would have been a shame if you both hit Spain at Havana and then just fought each other for it.
And like at that point, I wasn't going to communicate with Dan about where I was planning on doing it. I mean, we were still messaging, but Dan was very suspect in my eyes after about week 6. So I wouldn't have necessarily trusted him to coordinate that hit, which was the big thing. Like people kept saying, "Why aren't you attacking Spain? Why aren't you attacking Spain?" It's like, dude, for 2 weeks in a row, Spain whooped my butt, and then there just wasn't anyone to attack Spain with. And I knew that if I fired back at Spain, he would just keep punching me, and I could not withstand the machine that he had built for points.
They were getting a lot of points.
Yeah, so I knew the Dutch wouldn't help me because I had bullied them and I had bought Dan's lies. I knew Dan wasn't going to help me because he was feeding Spain info. I knew the natives weren't going to help me because they didn't attack in the first Spanish alliance and they didn't trust anyone and they wanted to play a really safe campaign. I knew that England might, but I didn't think the two of us could necessarily do it. And England was very upfront that he would not coordinate with anyone after the failed attack where he was the only one who swung at Spain. He was very upfront that I'll have a non-aggression pact with you, but I will not tell you where I'm attacking. I'm not going to coordinate. I'm going to do my own thing. If you want to tell me your info, I'll try and plan around that. But it was a very one-way street with England. So
yeah, everybody felt that way.
I respected that because I did screw up. I got drunk and didn't log my attack. But at the same time, it's like, well, you know, that's not necessarily the ally who you want going against the big, scary Spanish machine. If he's going to do his own thing, I'll kind of do my own thing, and we'll just ignore each other. Yeah.
So I'm hearing so much double crossing and corruption and bitterness between all the ranks of the other nations. Spain was able to just walk away with the prize.
Yeah, Spain had 2 things really going for them. I lied. I'm going to say 3. Spain had 3 things really going for them. They had a phenomenal commander who did the groundwork even before the campaign started with getting his people really fired up and passionate. He had one player who was an absolute machine, bringing in an ungodly amount of points. And then he had Dan screw up that anti-Spanish coalition. If that anti-Spanish coalition had worked, it would have been a very different campaign because week 3, we could have cut Spain off at the knees. They might still have won, but it wouldn't have been such a dominating victory. But after that alliance fell apart, there was no trust.
If it makes you feel any better, that player bringing in all those points was a spy in my chat that I thought was my spy, but he was Spain's spy. So I was
Big
not.
Brother's
I was
always
not immune.
watching.
Yep. Yeah, I was not immune to the
little
Spanish
brother
whack.
in this case.
They knew exactly what I was doing and everything, and they created fake chats to send me fake info. They had it on point.
That's really funny. Yeah, I don't think I had any spies in my chat. Pretty confident. Everyone in my chat ended up winning a prize at some point too, which I was really happy with.
That's awesome.
They were really my most dedicated players, and they all walked away with something cool at the end of the campaign, which was great.
So I want to talk about the chats and what we're going to do to improve that next year. But before we move on, I'd like to just, what did you expect coming into this, Andy? And what did you get? How are they different as far as helping out as the national commander?
I was sold that it was a really low commitment and that it wasn't going to be a lot of work. It wasn't going to be too hard, and it was going to be a good, fun time. The person who sold me that bridge was named Joseph, and I bought it hook, line, and sinker. It was much more work than I expected it to be.
Yeah, this is our first time doing this exact system, and it did take more effort than we anticipated. So I appreciate your patience, and I apologize.
No, you're
false
good. You're
selfish.
good. What I had expected was how it went previous years, where I knew the commanders like did a weekly write up, and I knew the commanders, encouraged their players to play and did little weekly prizes, and that's kind of all I was expecting. And I was like, oh, I can be a cheerleader. I can hype my players up. I can talk trash. I can kind of do the WWE thing, with the other commanders and tease each other a little bit, and that'll be a good fun time. The map really added a whole new dimension, and I had no clue coming in this year the level of strategy and manipulation and my husband was a really good sport because there would be Saturday night after the attacks were logged, I was staying up to see results like it was the Super Bowl. Like I was pacing the living room, with minutes left on the clock, changing my point allocations back and forth and second guessing myself and messaging Tyler, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And it was a heavy amount of strategy, and I absolutely loved it. But boy, howdy, it was nuts.
I kind of perceived a lot of pressure on the commanders because you're representing all these players. You're using the points they've generated, and you don't want to screw it up, but you also know that it's just a game. But that looked like a more intense job than I initially expected.
Getting to create a tournament legal commander too, really made it real for me that I'm contributing to Blood and Plunder, by doing this. This is a game I love. This is a company who has brought me a lot of joy, and I'm representing them in some small capacity by being the French leader this year. So I want to do a good job for them. I want to do a good job for the players. I want to do a good job for myself. I'm kind of playing up that I'm an idiot, so I want to place well, so that way afterwards I can be like, oh yeah, that was all an act. If the campaign ends and I'm in fifth place and I've been asking all these dumb questions in the chat and acting like I don't know what's going on, no one's gonna believe that I was playing that up.
Would be better.
So yeah, it was definitely weighing heavy on me that I wanted to do well.
Your strategy worked pretty well in the end, and you got second place. So congratulations, and thanks for all your hard work and emotional stamina making it through the campaign. It was 10-week. What was it? 10-week campaign this year. We've already started plans for next year's 2024's Summer of Plunder. Tweak it a little bit again to try to even out some things. To one, we want to make the chats a little bit more accessible to players. Some people didn't know about them. Some people were suspected of being spies and kind of left after they didn't get admitted right away. And so we kind of just thought of those group chats late in the game, and then just people set them up. But we got a whole Discord set up where people can join the Discord, get a French label, and get into the French chat, and they can't be anywhere else. So it should be more well organized, foster a little better community within each nation next year. So we're looking forward to that being a little more fun for the players. We're also going to take some of the pressure off the commanders and have the players vote for where they want to attack more. So the commanders will have a couple attacks they can make, but then the players decide everything else. That should help foster communication between players so they can coordinate and try to take what the French or any nation want to focus on, but it won't be all up to that one poor commander making the decision.
That'll be interesting. I definitely loved getting my chat's input on decisions, but they were very vocal that at the end of the day, they wanted me to make the final call for a lot of stuff. And the only thing that I officially put up to the vote was the final attack. Do we attack Spain or do we just play defensive this last week? So it'll be interesting to see how the vote dynamic works and how that'll affect certain alliances and backstabbings amongst the commanders, because there were quite a few times where I learned something last minute and I changed everything. And in the internet age you can do that, but back in old-timey war days you couldn't send a raven like Game of Thrones to get that information there. So maybe an attack is going off, your players have voted, you can't pull that back now, and something has changed over on another front. That'll be very, very interesting.
You can't turn your ship around when it's 1,000 miles out.
If it makes you feel any better, Andy, we voted on literally everything. So when Spain approached us like to be their little their puppet, we put it to a vote and they said yes, and then every week we would just vote on everything. So we were like kind of planned chaos, but not really.
How piratical of you to vote on everything. How very on brand.
I was like, what do y'all want to do? And I will go from there. And then they would say what they want to do. We'd vote. And then I would just, all right, here's the politicking. Go over and do that. Come back next week. Do it all again. Everything was voted on.
Spain every so often would try and get me to do something. And I would lie and say, oh, I have to ask my players. We'll have to put it to a vote. Which I was not running votes except for that final one. But it gave me a clean out to be like, hey, I wanted to do it, but my players, they didn't buy it. Please don't attack me. It's not my fault.
These rowdy Frenchmen.
I'm glad I wasn't a commander. Sounds stressful.
It was a ton of fun, but yeah, it's a lot of I don't want to call it work because we're playing a game, but a lot of strategy, a lot of ignoring my job while Facebook is blowing up with messages from different chats, whether it be the players, the commanders, or the organizers. But yeah, it was an absolute blast. The map was so cool. Can't say enough good things about having that this year, where it really made the campaign come alive and in a tangible way. My partner doesn't necessarily understand all the games I play, but I could show him the map and be like, look, this is how all of my plastic soldiers are doing. And he was like, oh, your boats are doing so good. Good job, babe. And I'd say thanks. So it was really cool to be able to, show him a little bit of what I was investing an entire summer into.
Well, we thank you for all your work and getting it done this year. It was fun to have you on board and participate. Making plans for next year. If you're a Blood and Plunder Oak and Iron player out there, make sure to keep an eye on the Facebook page for Blood and Plunder, Oak and Iron, or bloodandpigment.com, where we'll send out some kind of news as far as how the campaign is warming up. It'll probably start in June, I think, May or late May, June, and run through part of early August. And anybody who's interested in these pirate games can participate real easy, low barrier to entry. Just got to play some games, take some pictures, and kind of jump in and chat with other players if you want. It should be a lot of fun. So think about that for next year. Start getting your forces painted up and ready.
I do a lot of solo gaming, so the Summer of Plunder really makes me feel like part of the community, which is super appreciated, and it's a ton of fun. So especially if you're a solo gamer out there, you don't have a big gaming community near you, definitely participate in this. You'll feel connected to other players.
Well, we should wrap it up here. Thanks again, Andy, for more Blood and Plunder content. If you're listening to this, check out our blog. We have tons of articles focusing on Blood and Plunder. And if you're interested in Oak and Iron as well, check out Timber and Sail with a lot of info on Oak and Iron.
Check out the rest of our YouTube channel as well. Subscribe and ring the ship's bell so you can stay notified of our uploads. We also have a Patreon as well.
And as always, keep your dice ready and the wind at your back. Crush on!